This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are here back in Colorado. As you've been following on the show, we've been doing a string of shows from our time at the Consumer Electronics Show. Had a great show this year, a lot of great interviews, and we're still digging through all of those interviews, and we'll be producing those as we go on with regards to more and better content about. And this year's show was really interesting. A lot of AI. AI was kind of the big thing this year. And it got to be so crazy at the show. Nothing like hanging out with 180,000 of your nearest and dearest friends in Las Vegas, that we actually had companies that we were trying to get to in Las Vegas that we were unable to get booked. The mobile studio was just absolutely jam-packed, back-to-back with interviews, and some of those we just couldn't get scheduled in. So we are continuing down that path of bringing guests on the show that are doing some interesting work in areas that most of us don't really even think about. We just think about services and products that we buy. But in many cases, there may be another company, another level of technology that is behind the scenes that we just normally don't think about. So today's show, we have a guest that we tried to get scheduled into Las Vegas, was unable to do that. And I'm not going to blow the whole storyline. I'm going to let their CTO share their background and about the company and the technologies that they actually make available to other companies that then turn into services that you in your homes and in other areas may be experiencing. So the technology behind the technology is the theme for today's show. So with that, let me bring on today's guest. It's Arsham Hatambeiki from Universal Electronics, or what they refer to as UEI. Arsham, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Phil.
So what I'd like for you to do, first of all, is give us a little bit of background on yourself. Now, as you and I were talking before we started the recording, just for full disclosure here, UEI got introduced to me through a mutual contact, Sajif Jahil. Sajif actually serves on the board at UEI, and Sajif and I were peers at HP, where I was CTO. Sajif was the Chief Marketing Officer. And if you're not familiar with Sajif's name, he is the former Chief Marketing Officer at Apple. So Sajif was the one who actually was trying to facilitate getting us together, and scheduling in Las Vegas is absolutely nuts. But Arsham, give me a little bit of background on yourself. Introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. So background, I've always been in technology. I actually started in what you can consider to be machine learning before machine learning was a term. And later on, my research was primarily in wireless network security. As I joined UEI, focused on higher-end CDA, home automation platforms, complete end-to-end, kind of like a Windows mobile device, handheld device, something like an iPhone before the iPhone, that you can fully automate everything from security to lifestyle applications in a home. But typical install back at a time was 150 to 200K plus type installs of a complete quote-unquote smart home. Beyond that, got involved in a whole series of standards-based new RF technologies and solutions in UEI, kind of the inception of what is now powering all the voice control, like set-top boxes, smart TVs. And it's just last year, we actually just announced 100 million voice remote controls shipped, which is, it's exciting. And have dabbled everything from cloud services, SaaS offerings that are integrated into, say, other products, and hardware solutions that enable basically the same experience in an embedded form. It's been fun. Go on, please.
Yeah. So where'd you go to school at?
So I did my master's in San Francisco, actually, and that's where I was joining a little startup that's UEI 15, 16 years ago, acquired the startup, and I ended up moving down to Southern California. Only about 2 years ago, I moved back to the Bay. So it's good to be back home.
So you were the product of an acquisition. So, and
That
actually, it's
is
funny
correct.
because my background was the same way. I was with a little bitty software company that then got acquired by Computer Sciences Corporation, and then it just led to a whole series of experiences of being relocated and living all over the world for CSC. And so, so as a kid, were you always interested in tech, even as a kid?
I always loved tech. The first project I ever did, I did a little bit of animation and what was it called? GW Basic, and then post that
Oh,
in Pascal.
man.
And I know. And remember you could zoom in, you would lay out all your graphics and zoom in, and you make it look like an actual cartoon. It was great. The world of possibility seemed endless back at the time. So it's just a little toy for creativity. That's how I can explain tech.
So what was your first computer then?
I did not own a computer until I was late in high school. The first systems that I was using were, do you remember the back systems?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I kind of got started on time-shared back systems that I would get, you can sit there, you can play a little bit. I opened up my first email account on Yahoo back at a time on a back system and all text-based, very matrix-like, if you will.
Yeah, I like to remind people that HP acquired DEC, which was the manufacturer for VAX. So, and that's actually how I did a VAX PDP-11 at the University of Illinois. That was one of my first online platforms. But I was actually, I was actually in college before I owned my own first personal computer, which was an Osborne. Man, that's an old one. My wife reminds me of that going into the Smithsonian. She points to that and she goes, "Oh, we've got one of those in the garage still." And yes, it still boots up.
Well, the best was the social aspect of it. What was it called? It was something like a ping. It was a thing. So you could actually start chit-chatting with somebody sitting 2 tables down and, it was good times.
Yeah, it was. I mean, in it's interesting given, I look at technology today and what, we saw growing up, and I look at I now have 5 grandkids. The oldest one is 8.
Sure.
Right. And I look at the technologies that, to them, they don't think of it as just anything new or novel. It just exists. Right. So they just think it always has existed. Right. And, my oldest daughter, who just turned 37, she's going to shoot me for revealing her age in the show. Her husband listens to the show. She refuses to listen to the show. Right. But, the reminder for, her, she was talking with a bunch of kids and she mentioned about she used to watch a certain show on tape and they were like, tape? And she had to try to describe what a VHS tape was to these kids who had no concept of how far we've advanced since then. So where'd you do your undergrad at?
I actually did my undergrad in Iran in a school called Shaif University. Really, really, good school. Focused on the more academic side of things. So it's not hands-on approach as you'd have it more in US-based undergrad schools even. That's where I actually got my first project in quote-unquote machine learning. Back at the time when it was still considered to be a crazy approach to solving mathematical problems, but it worked.
Yeah, and it was the early days of machine learning and the early days of trying to recreate how the brain works, right? If you go back to Marvin Minsky at MIT Media Lab, the early AI work, and then the Japanese were funding big AI projects back in the late 70s and early 80s. They were going to own the AI world, and here we are in 2020, and we're still trying to figure this thing out and seeing how it is going to play out. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about UEI, the company, give a little bit of background, a little history on it, how it came about, kind of what it sees its mission with regards to bringing these technologies to reality. And with that, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back after this quick commercial break. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network. Welcome back to Killer Innovations. We're continuing our conversation with Arsham from UEI. So let's talk a little bit about UEI. It's not a company name that I'm going to guess 90% of the people have never heard of, right? So give us a little bit of history on what is UEI and what do you do and how did the company come about? What's its history here?
Sure. So I'm willing to make a dollar bet that every single one of your listeners will have a product of ours in their living room, any one of them. Now, the company is a NASDAQ-listed public company. It actually went public in 1993, so it's been around for a while. It started with a very basic concept of making life easier, both for the consumers in their home and interacting with their AV equipment. That's how we got started, as well as operationally for the service providers and making sure that if they're carrying multiple variations of set-top boxes, and this is back at a time that the actual back end and the infrastructure was more controlled and dominated by set-top boxes than the operators. And we came up with this concept of a quote-unquote universal remote control that is able to control a fragmented install base of devices, both as far as what set-top box you're using to receive your linear content, as well as different brands of TVs that really completes the experience. I mean, you can't really watch TV without the volume. You can't really watch the TV if you can't turn on the TV. These are very basic problems, but in order to fix them, we had to start building a catalog, a knowledge graph of devices, their relationships, their capabilities, and their control protocols. So we started from infrared. We built that all into very small microcontrollers and put it inside a remote control, and voila, you have a single device that can now control 100% of the install base, from TVs to set-top boxes for an operator, and we offer the same experience in the retail domain as well as an aftermarket piece. Now, over time, the aftermarket piece has become a smaller portion of overall what we do. A lot of times our technology nowadays is built into these set-top boxes and TVs, and we've evolved from pure AV control into smart home security, hospitality, and starting to blend the experience between entertainment and smart home control.
So how big is UEI? How big is your staff? Give us a sense of scale.
So outside of factories, we're about 3,700 employees now. We are pretty well distributed globally with a strong presence in the Western hemispheres. We have offices in our headquarters in Scottsdale, Phoenix. I'm in Bay Area. We have an R&D center in Bay Area. And we have 2 offices in San Diego and Orange County as well. Internationally, we have offices elsewhere. Through time, we've acquired factories. We've set up new factories. So we have our own factories. We have our own silicon. We have it's a fully vertically and integrated technology partner, if you will.
So do you actually, because I mean, given that you're providing an element of an entire experience, do you deliver then finished product white labeled that then gets distributed, either gets bundled with a set-top box or home electronic device of some kind? Or are you doing components in that controller that others then build around? Or is the answer being both?
Answer is yes, all of the above. So if you look at how we deliver our technology, we do have finished products from remote controls, security sensors, gateways. So this is finished product offering. We do have silicon with the software that can be integrated in someone else's product, and that's quite prominent in the smart TV domain, for example, or smart speakers that are now integrating our technology. And we do have a software-only solution as well that can be integrated with certified silicon. If you already have one in your platform, that is the easiest approach in scaling out. So we do offer all three layers, and I think at the end of the day, we're expected to.
Well, yeah, I mean, having lived in the world of trying to enhance capabilities when I first took over as CTO at HP, I ended up with the TV business, and most people will not realize that HP was in the TV business, and we actually shipped the very first smart TV. It was called a Media Smart TV, and this is back in 05, I'm going to guess, 04, 05. Yeah, always, as they say, if you're on the leading edge, you're on the bleeding edge. You will go through the pain. And embedding silicon into the TV to try to get, universal remote and direct media control and playback and allow for seamless interfacing across all of your in-home devices. It's a hugely complex, usually, and people think about standards organizations. There are no standards in that world.
And the ironic thing about standards is, as we find deficiencies, we all sit around the table and we add a new one. So voila.
And that's always the problem, right? Because everybody thinks especially engineers, are not satisfied unless they invent something, even if it continues to go on. So
that's right. We're known for over-engineering at times.
Yep.
True. One of the interesting products, going back to the complexities, is one of the first products when I joined UEI was we were adding our media streaming and AV control capabilities onto the iPAQ PDAs from Compaq, and that was right before Compaq and HP became one. So that was quite interesting, and that actually started some thoughts here on how can we bring that into the home rather than on a PDA that's more mobile and going all over the place.
So we've come back from this commercial break. What I'd like to talk about then is you were introducing some new white label technologies at CES. I want to talk about that, but I want to talk about specifically about what's the problem you're trying to solve. What's the trend that you are writing? So when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Arsham at UEI. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Welcome back. We're continuing our conversation with Arsham from UEI. So at CES, when Sajif reached out to me and said, hey, you got to meet with these guys, I did a little bit of work. Your team sent me a little bit of background information about what you were talking about at CES. But I want to back it up maybe a little bit and say, what was the opportunity or the problem? What triggered you to go down this path that you were heading? I mean, you've been in kind of the the tactile universal remote world. This is a little different, similar, kind of along the same path, but different. So what was that spark that got you heading down the path that you were heading down?
Very good question. So I can really categorize into two groups. And if you look, it has been a slow transition for us. I can say our cloud services that were only introduced maybe about 3 to 4 years ago, right now power millions and millions of smart TVs and set-top boxes and enabling kind of unique and novel experiences. Actually, at CES, one of the major TV brands also announced some smart home capabilities natively built into their TV using our technology. And to us, that's only the start. When we look at consumer adoption of smart home, it's still in the early adopter stage. It hasn't made it into the early majority or post that. And for us, it's because it's not really integrated into the primary experiences that people have in the home right now. The devices that they primarily use in the home are still left on an island. And entertainment experience is completely different than what you do with the new shiny doorbell camera that you bought. And as long as that's the case, you still won't reach the heart of the market. You won't be able to deliver the values of the services. So since we already had roles to play in both sides of the market, we said maybe we're in a very good position to be the fabric that helps bring these two sides together in a way that still protects consumer choice. So basically helping the market evolve was one from a consumer perspective. And second is the need to do it in a way that brands still remain in control of their own experiences. And on that, I have all the respect for the Google Assistants and Alexas of the world, because they have the marketing power to actually bring about these new use cases and make them understood and well accepted. But what I can't agree with is a Facebook page model. Think about when the web started. If the web started as Facebook page, and that was the only way that anybody could have a presence, then every service and every brand would need to fit within these predefined sets of criteria on what services they can offer. They wouldn't be able to innovate. Amazon wouldn't exist. Instagram wouldn't exist. So all these innovative new features and services are only offered when brands can reach their loyal users directly. And we said, all right, we can offer up a platform, purely white label, from hardware to software to cloud services, that enables that direct to consumer and direct to home service delivery. You can still publish across existing retail assistants, and you can still have a professional grade service for an assistant focused on home security, an assistant focused on energy management, and so on and so forth. So protecting choice and bridging the gap between entertainment experience and smart home experiences were the two sides of the same coin, and that's how we ended up on this platform.
And so this platform is really then delivering a voice option for the in-home experience rather than the tactile button piece. And
I would classify it as an addition, not explicitly instead. And we do see the home as completely multimodal. The same capabilities which are exposed to far-field voice can actually be integrated starting this year into your smart TV. You can have a conversational interface whether you use voice or not. You can still have a conversational interface that can help you and guide you through basic aspects of interacting with devices around you in the home. And the underlying foundation is about interoperability for us. The fact that we can discover and connect devices across brands with minimal friction And we can basically make every device in the home a gateway to experiences that bridge entertainment smart home across brands.
So, I'm going to ask you the question that I get asked a lot by people, right? Which is, how have you seen pushback from consumers in their homes because of, some may view it as, is this device always listening to me? What about my personal privacy? Because I think, at least people that ask me about it typically are not very technically savvy, but they're concerned about the privacy piece. How do you answer that?
That actually is a very valid question to ask and demand answers on. The problem that I have is we're not always asking the right question. A lot of the concerns and worries around privacy are misguided towards areas that are already addressed, and it's based on myth, not based on what's actually happening in the home. It is valid. I do think clear business models from brands will be the only way to address that beyond regulation and so forth, but regulation is always lagging. But having a clear business model stated by whoever is placing a product in your home would be step number one. If you're buying a product at below the cost of what it would be to build that product and support that product, then you should probably connect the dots that there's a reason that product is used as a loss leader, is coming into your home and has an alternative use case. We do think the consumers are better educated right now, but the future actually looks better. So I hope we're on the right path, and all signs indicate that we are.
Well, I think what's unique about yours is, though, your approach is the fact that it is cross-brand, right? Versus I can only have a Google or I could just have an Amazon. In your case, I could have a voice-controlled remote, I can have voice-controlled IoT, I could have voice-controlled TV, and they all interact. So you actually have a more integrated experience than getting a single chokehold through one access means.
Exactly. And I was actually on a panel in Amsterdam in November timeframe. And I just experienced this myself. Do you really want to have a single point of failure in your home? Do you really want to have a single brand that can hold your home hostage based on a service model change, based on any change? Or do you really want to have that distributed model in the home that if one goes down, you can still access and exercise everything you need through other devices in the home that can all communicate together properly, and they can still continue providing that quote-unquote service that a smart home is supposed to offer. Now, on the more, this is from a consumer perspective, more reliability. And the flip side of that is also a business model. Android, open source, great. I'll use Android as an example. However, Android without the non-open source services, the Google services, is really not that useful anymore. So if you look at interoperability, if interoperability ends up being that concept of a marketplace, then we need to be careful.
Yep.
Okay.
When we come back from this commercial break, I want to continue on that point about being careful. And also, what advice would you give the listeners of the show about thinking about these kinds of cross-brand integrated innovations? Because I think it's an interesting topic that doesn't get enough talking to it. So we'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Welcome back. Let's continue our conversation with Arsham from UEI. Now, the topic we were having, or the discussion we had in the last segment, was really around the differences between having control points from single vendors or multi-vendors and et cetera. But the question I'd like for you to talk about, or give some guidance to the listeners here about, is this kind of innovating across brand, right? It's a challenge, right? Because we talked earlier in the show about standards and specs, and there is no standard. So you got to, so you basically are playing like this massive human glue problem of how do you integrate all these different devices? And what advice would you give to other innovators that are in environments where they're dealing with all of these multiple elements of an ecosystem? How do you think about innovating across ecosystems?
Always start from the user and the application, the key value. In the world of at least smart home, I would say there's much more value in going deep than going wide. So if you pick a specific use case, such as independent living, and you pick the right experiences and then see what cross-brand interoperability is required, build the required hooks in place, that will give you control over the most valuable pieces of the solution. At the end of the day, if you don't control the integration between different brands, and if you're outsourcing that to, let's say, a single brand like Alexa, everything is integrated through Alexa, then you're hoping that someday in the future your business model will not conflict with Amazon's, which, I mean, if history is any proof point, that has been less true more and more as they grow, and that's fair. They do need to work on scale, and you need to take that into account. There is still a lot of brand loyalty in the market. Consumers have proven that they like specific brands, they like to have choice, they like to build their own experiences. So you need to go to the market with that in mind. And trust me, the market is far more accepting of the solution as long as you can make sure all the right pieces are in place. And that's exactly where we started. When we started the experience, I already thought, but you're competing with the bigger players in the market, but we're not really competing. We're actually complementing. We're complementing where they're not focused. They're focused on very specific use cases that they can gain really, really large acceptance quickly. For us, a large TAM is relatively much smaller compared to them, but we can still deliver very unique use cases, enable our customers, from operators to smart TV guys to pro security companies. We can help them build very unique experiences, the way that you see, for example, Google is trying to do between their own Nest brand and their own Google Home hubs and their own Google Assistant. So we're enabling the same continuity across brands on the other side, so that they can still offer up first-class experiences in the home.
So in the case of UEI, when you think about what it is you do, for those companies that want to create the experience, is the value of a UEI relationship the fact that they get that cross-brand, right? So the companies you're dealing with are saying, look, I'm not going to go compete with Alexa or Siri or whatever, and I don't want to, it's not a research area that I want to fund that research. So find a partner who bridges me across even a broader ecosystem. So they come to you because of the relationships and the fact that your elements are already contained in so many devices that are already in the home. Do I get it right?
That's exactly right. So we do believe in a multi-assistant world. So if you look at 2020, for example, you're already seeing 3 assistants running on the same device. And more often than not, we're the underlying technology for one of those 3 assistants. And we can help you both build that assistant capability inside your connected device, as well as we can help you bridge the gap between your device and other devices that are not running our assistant capability, but we already support them through our interoperability as a service. So we can offer both layers that would, at the end of the day, be necessary table stakes for offering anything new.
Yeah. So, real quick, we're coming up on the end of the segment. If people want to find out more information about UEI and specifically this work on the white label offering, where's the best place for them to find out more information?
QuicksetCloud.com would be the best place to get started.
Okay, and what we'll do is we'll include that link in the show notes over at killerinnovations.com. So, Arsham, thanks a lot. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. Sorry we could not connect in Las Vegas, but through the power of Zoom, we are able to get together today. So I greatly appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate it.
So as we wrap up today's show, we are getting ready to hit the road again to do the Rural Innovation Tour. So if you've got an interesting innovation story, or you know of an interesting innovation story, I would absolutely love to hear about it. You can drop me an email directly at phil@killerinnovations.com, and we will be mapping out kind of our stops in the mobile studio as we head across the country this spring and early summer. So we're trying to lay out that schedule now. So please reach out and let us know, and we would love to stop by. And we're looking for interesting innovation stories in non-obvious places, like the story we did on Finn Gourmet Foods in Paducah, Kentucky. We are the feedback and the interest in those kinds of stories. We're going to try to do some more of those again this spring, this summer, but we need your help. If you've got an interesting story or know someone that has an interesting innovation story, let me know. We'd love to bring the studio to you and capture that. And with that, we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us here on today's show. If you're not a subscriber, hop on over to iTunes, Google, iHeart, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. We're there. With that, we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.